Hello and welcome to the MBOM podcast, where you'll learn to master the business of yoga. MBOM is a proud part of the Wander Barn Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Amanda Kingsmith. I'm a 500-hour registered yoga teacher, a yoga business coach, and a total business geek. Here at MBOM, you'll learn everything you need to know to create a sustainable yoga business by learning from myself and guests from around the world about how they built their yoga businesses, and about how you too can become a successful yoga teacher, studio owner, and much more. All right, let's dive in. Hello, friends. Welcome back for another episode of the MBOM podcast. I am super excited that you're joining me for today's episode of the show. And today on the podcast, we are talking all about rest. And you know what? My original plan for this solo episode was to talk about resumes, but as I sat down to record, I just was not feeling inspired by that. And while I think resumes are super important, and I'm going to aim to do a future episode on the importance of resumes and what to include, I'm just not feeling called to talk about that today. And one of my goals for coming a little bit back online from maternity leave is to really be focusing on talking about things and with people that's really inspiring me and my heart in this moment. And I want to just start by catching you up with where everything is at. And so if you are listening to this episode in real time, it is the end of May. I'm recording earlier than that at the start of May. And this is one of my first podcast episodes since being back online in some capacity from my maternity leave. So currently my babe is sleeping, which will hopefully last for the remainder of this recording. We shall see. And I'm sitting here in my house. My husband's out getting a haircut. So I've got a quiet house, which is a little bit unusual these days with just all the things that are going on with a new baby. And I wanted to just take this moment to settle in and talk about how things are going and talk about the importance of rest in our businesses, because this has been so real and prevalent for me. And so just to back up a little bit and give you guys a quick little overview of where things have been at, I mostly went offline in my business in January. I wanted to give myself a little bit of time before baby came. Little did I know that my little one would be 8 days late. So I was past 41 weeks. I was very big. I was very uncomfortable. I was very ready to have her. She arrived on February 10th, which was super, super exciting. And I've been in full-on mom baby care mode over the last couple of months. So everything you've heard on the podcast, basically for all these months of 2022, I recorded at the end of 2021 and did a lot of work to make sure I could be offline. And I have a beautiful, beautiful assistant who helps me and somebody who does production and editing for the show. Shout out to him. Thank you so much, Avery. You're the best. And it's just been really awesome to be able to step away and spend time with my baby girl over the last couple of months. And obviously having this tiny little human to take care of really changes things in a big way. It kind of changes your life in a lot of ways and changes your priorities. And while my business is still super important to me, it's certainly not the forefront in this moment. And one of the things I've just been thinking about a lot over the last couple of months, and specifically over the last couple of weeks, as I've just been gearing up to get back into things a little bit and to work a little bit, has been just the work-life balance and the importance of giving ourselves time and space away from work, and how we're seeing a little bit of a shift, I think, and a little bit of a trend towards taking care of ourselves and whatnot. But I think that I just want to talk about how important that is and how we can actually do that in our businesses, because so often we are just burning ourselves out, and that's just not productive for people. And before we really get into it, I am sitting here drinking a matcha latte, and I wanted to give a little shout out to one of my partners, Magic Mind. They create this beautiful matcha beverage that has adaptogens in it and low caffeine. And since I'm breastfeeding my baby girl, I have to be really cautious about how much caffeine I'm consuming. And, I'm sleeping a little less than I was pre-baby. So, having a bit of caffeine is really nice. And this is really great because it tastes super good and it doesn't give me the jitters, which is so important. And so I'm sitting here drinking this beautiful matcha latte. I made it with some frothed almond milk. So I cooked the almond milk or heated it up on the stove and then added in the Magic Mind drink and then blended it in the blender. And it's just super tasty and warming. Even though I'm in Mexico and it is super warm right now, it's nice to have a cozy little beverage to curl up to as I am sitting down to record. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about Magic Mind as we get into the show, but just wanted to let you guys know that that was something that I was enjoying right now. And I do have a promo code and a link for you. So I'm going to grab that and give you that info in case you want to check them out while you're listening. So that link is magicmind.co/yoga. And then you can use the code yoga20 for 20% off. And like I said, we're going to talk a little bit more about them a little bit later on. So for now, let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about burnout. Let's talk a little bit about rest. I guess we can weave some self-care into that. And I want to just start by talking about the hustle culture and the hustle mentality and just why I feel like that isn't working for me. And I've been running my own business since 2016 at this point, basically working online since 2015. And a lot of those first years were kind of hustle as I was building. I wasn't making that much money. So there was definitely the need to be working on things constantly and bringing in clients, bringing in revenue. And hustling was working for me at that point. I think I was just, working kind of all hours of the day, the night. I wanted to be really flexible with clients that I was working with. And it was around the time that I was living in Mexico City, end of 2017, first half of 2018, that I just really recognized I'm exhausted. I'm tired constantly. And it's because I was working all day. And then if people wanted to do podcast interviews or clients needed calls in the evening, I was really being willing to do that because I valued working with them. And I also really valued the money that was coming in from them. And I finally needed to set some boundaries in my business and kind of set up this rhythm and flow, and ended up setting up a schedule that worked for me where I was working more of the traditional Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And that was something that I tried so long to escape from. If you know a little bit about my story, I worked in corporate until 2014 and then took a career U-turn and took a couple of years to figure out what I wanted to do, and then started building, this business that you're familiar with now. And you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I was really working like Monday to Saturday, and Saturdays wasn't a huge thing. I just had a little bit to do. I think one call and a little bit of contract work that I had to do every Saturday. And I did that until, the end of 2020, when I finally was like, having one day off a week is not working for me because it's not enough time to decompress. And I shifted things. I shifted that call and I shifted my schedule. So I no longer needed to do that contract work, and being able to have 2 days off back to back was beautiful. And this was something that I really learned from working with Renee Claire from the Productive Wellnesspreneur, which you guys have heard on the podcast, maybe 3 times at this point. She's so wonderful, and working with her one-on-one has been such a gift for me to give myself this time and space, because it's really easy for me to get caught up in this, like, work constantly, hustle, do all the things. And truly that mentality was not working for me because I was tired, one, and I was feeling resentful in my business and resistant to doing things. And I think for me, this is a cue that I have gone too far. So tuning into the tiredness, I think, is really important. But then taking it one step further and recognizing, like, if you're feeling resentful with a client that you truly enjoy working with, what is that resentment and why is it showing up? And for me, it was coming from not setting boundaries. And so being able to give myself 2 days off back to back was a real big gift. And so when I got pregnant and I started thinking about maternity leave, I honestly had no idea how I was going to fully step away from my business. And the way in which I was able to do that was a lot of preparation beforehand. So batching a lot of podcast episodes, having really amazing people who I work with, who I knew I could trust, and trust them to be able to take care of things and set things up for me. And being able to take 3 full months away from my business and take care of my baby, like I said at the beginning, has really shifted my perspective And that's what's really called me to talk about the importance of rest today, because this is something that's truly important, not just for those of you who also have babies or children, but for all of us. Rest is hugely, hugely important. And I think that there's a trend. There's kind of this trend towards hustle mentality or hustle, hustle, hustle. And there's also this trend showing up towards self-care. And I know self-care can be a bit of a word for some people, because some people kind of put it out there as like bubble baths or massages and that type of thing. And I really think of self-care as the things that truly make me feel rested and invigorated. And I love a bubble bath and I love a massage. Bubble baths are obviously a bit more accessible because I can do them in my own home and they're not expensive. Massages are something I would truly get probably every day or a couple times a week if it was within my budget. And maybe that'll be a goal for the future. But for now, it's something that maybe once a month or once every couple months, I like to treat myself to. But self-care is more than just these things that we do every once in a while. I think it needs to be built into our routine. And one of the reasons that I love the work that Renee does from the Productive Wellnesspreneur is when she sits down and works with you and talks about productivity, the first thing you do is set aside your routines and all of that type of stuff so that you're building in, your morning meditation, your yoga practice, your rituals around bathing time. Maybe that's Abhyanga or yoni steaming or something like that, whatever you're into. Building in time, like those 2 days off on the weekend that I did to spend with family and friends and rejuvenate. But more so than just self-care, I want to talk about this rest that we deeply need within our business. And it kind of comes from this idea of like, yes, building in self-care practices on a daily basis and setting boundaries within our business that work for us. But it's a deeper level of taking care of ourselves. And so I actually wanted to pull up the definition of rest. And according to the interwebs, it is to cease work or movement in order to relax, refresh oneself, or recover strength. And this is hard in today's world because we're so surrounded by stimulation. We're so surrounded by screens. And oftentimes we're quote unquote resting while scrolling on social media and taking in all these things that people are telling us that we should be doing. So whether that's somebody telling you that you should be making reels or you should be working on your marketing, or somebody telling you that you should be taking care of yourself and that you should be taking bubble baths or getting massages, et cetera, et cetera. So more often than not, these times where we're quote unquote resting, we're not actually resting our brain. And there's a lot of science around this in terms of the different stages that our brain waves go through and how our brain waves never really settle. So we go from this place of like stimulation. So stimulated, 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 and then we lie down and we try to sleep and our eyes are exhausted and our body's exhausted, our brain's exhausted, but we're so stimulated that it's really hard to actually sleep. And so what I want to talk about today is like actually truly getting rest. And this has been really prevalent for me because quite honestly, I was sleeping pretty poorly in the last trimester of my pregnancy. I've always been somebody who has been blessed with being able to sleep super well and through the night and long hours and wake up feeling refreshed. But just being uncomfortable in pregnancy, I was not able to. I had a witching hour between 2 and 5 a.m. where I was often up for a good chunk of that. And then my baby came along and obviously we were feeding every 3 hours while she was really little and then starting to stretch that. And we've just recently gotten to the point where we've been able to sleep a good stretch of the night, like a good 7 hours, which has been amazing. But just really thinking about watching her need for rest, but then also recognizing my own need for rest in my life and in my business. And so to me, like that definition says, it's ceasing work or movement to relax, refresh, recover strength. While this is super hard, I don't really think that we're truly resting when we're taking in stimulation. So if we're sitting down to watch Netflix, which hello, yes, I watch Netflix, love a good binge. It can feel really like I can just zone out to it, but it's not truly resting. It's not resting my body. It's not resting my brain. So how do we actually rest if we're not zoning out on our phones, mindlessly scrolling, or watching TV? Resting is stepping away from a screen and being able to actually just maybe close our eyes and meditate, or listen to some really relaxing music, or do some legs up the wall. It's being able to just maybe lie on the couch or sit on the couch in silence with your partner, maybe read a book. And in this case, probably ideally something fictional, not something where you're learning. Because again, this is part of hustle culture and hustle mentality. Oh, I have a moment. I should be studying. I should be studying the Yoga Sutras. I should be reading a personal development book. I should be reading a business book. I should be reading something in my spare time that is going to further me in my business, in my life, help me make more money, help me get more clients, help me feel more satisfied with what I'm doing, help me be more successful, et cetera, et cetera. This is beautiful. This is a great form of personal and professional development, yet this is not rest. So even giving yourself space from that. So giving yourself space from TV, giving yourself space from the news, from social media, from these inputs, and even giving yourself a chance to step away from this learning and just lose yourself in maybe a fictional fantasy world or something like that, or a fictional story. And I think even more so than that, really truly resting is just giving yourself an opportunity to sit quietly without any inputs. And this is so hard and feels almost virtually impossible for so many of us. But some of the ways that I really like to rest are, like I said before, legs up the wall, maybe just following my own breath, meditation, using my own breath, or maybe some music with just mantras, or maybe just, quiet instruments and sounds like that, like nothing too stimulating to my brain where I'm having to listen to words and lyrics, et cetera, et cetera. So meditation, legs up the wall. Yoga nidra, I find, is a beautiful form of rest for myself, especially if I'm not getting enough sleep. And then also just being able to go to bed, like giving myself the gift of going to bed early. And I am the first person to say that I am constantly delaying bedtime. I feel like I'm like 5 years old fighting my parents against bedtime, even though my parents do not live with me. But it's like, oh, there's always another thing to do. So one of the things I do in my nighttime routine, and especially now that I've got a baby, is putting her to bed and then coming downstairs and tidying the kitchen. So doing the dishes, cleaning up. I usually listen to a podcast or something while I do that, making sure the house is tidy. And then these days I've been hopping on my computer, checking emails a little bit, maybe doing a couple minutes of work. And then if I'm not conscious, I can certainly just open Instagram and Facebook and just get my scroll on. And so instead of doing that, I've been really trying to put my phone away, turn a little bit of music on, go into a dark space, do a bit of intuitive stretching, and then lie and breathe. And this has been super helpful for resting, rejuvenating, and also for healing with postpartum. And so finding these ways that we can have little moments to ourselves where we can close our eyes, tune into our breath, go into a dark space, maybe move into our body in a way that feels really good, and just give ourselves this time. And so I think what I'd really like to encourage you to do is to think about how you're spending your time away from work right now. So writing down the things that you do outside of your work hours, and then evaluating, am I currently giving myself the chance to rest and rejuvenate with this? Or is the only time I'm getting rest when I'm actually going to bed and going to sleep? And if it's the latter, and it's right when you're going to bed and going to sleep, there's no shame, there's no guilt with that. But I'd love for you to think about how you feel when you close your eyes. Like, do you hit the pillow? Are you out immediately because you're so tired and overstimulated during the day? Does it take you a while to go to sleep because you have a busy, anxious mind? How are you feeling with that? And then thinking about, is there the possibility of adding even 5 to 10 minutes, maybe 20 to 30 if you have that gift for yourself, of rest into your day? And if so, how could you do that? Is it a meditation? Is it intuitive movement? Is it a bath with just a candle? Is it sitting down in a quiet room, not talking to your partner or your family members, and just reading a book just for you, not because you want to learn, but just because you enjoy that? Is it going to bed a few minutes early and giving yourself 5 to 10 minutes of putting your hand on your belly or hand on your rib cage and just doing some breathing? feeling your belly expand and contract into your hands. Maybe it's that. And I think that as you do this, thinking about, how you could give yourself this and remembering the importance of this. This is a business podcast, and we're here to talk about practical ways to be successful as yoga teachers. And I think that this is one of the ways that we truly move ourselves and our business forward, because so often we are operating from a place of burnout, and we're operating from a place of overstimulation. And often we're operating from a place of feeling like we need to say yes to things that aren't serving us because the world is expensive and obviously we need to make money. I'm in the same boat as you there. And we're not giving ourselves the gift and then the need to actually relax and rest. And I think that when we give ourselves these little moments, even if it's just a couple minutes every day, because we're busy, maybe you have a family, clients, jobs, partner, et cetera, even when we give ourselves these little tiny moments, even a couple minutes, we're really giving our bodies, our minds, and our brains the chance to decompress. And while this is a really hard practice for me, I continue to practice doing it because this is when I feel the best about my business. And this is when I get those creative ideas and inspirations. And this idea kind of first came into my life in 2019 when I was doing my 300-hour yoga teacher training in Vancouver. And one day our homework after studying the science of meditation was to do nothing. We were supposed to do nothing that night. And I was balancing running my business around going to school, 3.5 days a week. And so I was like, I can't do that. That's impossible for me. I don't know how to do this. Like, it's just not how I'm wired. But I really wanted to give it a shot because I knew I was running into burnout zone. I knew I was pushing myself pretty intensely. And so I wanted to give it a fair shot. So what I did is I went home. I had dinner with my husband without the TV on. Obviously, there's, stimulation and interaction with that. And talking is not necessarily restful, but it filled my cup up to have, an enriching conversation and to eat food without being in front of the TV or having other interruptions. And then I went down to the pool in our apartment building and I went for a swim. And I find swimming very meditative because I don't have music, I don't have podcasts, I'm not listening to anything. So I swam and then I came upstairs without looking at my phone. I'd plugged my phone in, tucked it away already, set my alarm for the next day. And I ran myself a bath. Then I got into the bath and I started by reading. I was reading, I can't remember, one of the books in The School for Good and Evil, I think. I'm pretty sure that's what I was reading. So I read that for a little bit. And then I put my book away and I just closed my eyes and gave myself a couple of moments of breathing super, super deeply and just lying in the warm water, just breathing. And not trying to force anything, just allowing myself to just be there. And then I got out of the bath, did kind of my nightly routine, made myself a herbal tea, got into bed, read a little bit more, and then gave myself a couple moments before I went to sleep. And I slept so well. It was actually incredible. And I was like, okay, this works. There's science to back all of this up, which we're not going to get into in this podcast. But if you are interested, you can, look up the science of meditation or the science of rest. And I was just thinking about how, as a yoga teacher, I am not the type of teacher anymore where I'm teaching power vinyasa or vinyasa flows to try to get people to sweat. I want people to have an experience where they get to tune into their breath, their bodies, their minds, and hopefully rejuvenate in some way. So slow warm-ups, nice, intelligent, functional flow, long shavasana, like 10 minutes, maybe more. Really give people that time to rejuvenate because I know this and I'm bad at it. And there are people who work in the corporate world and they don't know this. And I think as yoga teachers, so many of us know about giving our students this gift of a moment of silence or a moment to themselves and encourage them to really go deep and rest. And yet we run these businesses and we run ourselves ragged and we burn out and We do things like teach super early mornings and super late at night because we're passionate about giving this gift to our students, yet we're not really giving ourselves this gift. And I think that it's really important to make sure that we're bringing this into our business. And if that means saying no to a client or to a class, I think that it's worth it. And hear me out here when I say that I completely understand that this can be scary. And I say this because I've been in the position of going all in with a business and not having a big savings account to float on and being like, I need to bring in clients. I need to teach classes. I need to be working to pay my bills. And yet one thing I've really learned over the last several years of working for myself is that we need to make sure that we're aligned with what we're doing. And part of being aligned with what we're doing is making sure we're giving ourselves this time and space to take care of ourselves. And this becomes extra hard when you add on the layers of partners and children and parents and all this type of stuff. And often we're the nurturing types who are yoga teachers. So we want to take care of the people around us. And that means that taking care of ourselves doesn't happen. But one thing I've just found from over the last couple months, making sure I'm getting even a little bit of rest, a little bit of self-care into my day is that I can show up so much better for my baby girl, for my husband, for myself, and for my business. So I'd really, really like to encourage you guys to do the same. All right, I just want to take a quick pause so that you can hear from one of the sponsors of this show. And I'm going to take a little sip of my matcha, and I'm going to tell you more about that when we get back from the break. Hey, yoga teacher, we're just taking a quick break from the show to talk about online courses. When it comes to courses, there are so many different ways you can go about it. You could create a step-by-step video course that teaches students about a specific skill or specialization. You could sell or rent on-demand videos, repurposing your online classes, or you could decide to bundle your courses or classes with a membership instead of selling them as standalone items. Every yoga business is different, but if you want to start offering courses or some sort of on-demand video content, I highly recommend using Offering Tree. First of all, you'll have complete control of who gets your content, including who can see it and who can download it. You also get unlimited video uploads, and you can offer content as part of a membership, charge one-time fees, or use sliding scale pricing. Drip content out over time, offer limited access rentals, sell recordings, and more. I could seriously go on, and the possibilities really are endless. And that's just one reason why I love Offering Tree. I could talk for hours about all the things that I love about this platform, but I'll just say that it's really a one-stop shop for your yoga business. So if you've been looking for a software platform that is easy to use and affordable, you can stop looking because Offering Tree is it. And because you listen to MBOM, you'll get a special discount. Head on over to offeringtree.com/MBOM for 15% off an annual plan or 50% off 3 months. And don't forget that everyone gets a 14-day free trial, so you can try it out, play around with no commitment. All right, so head on over to offeringtree.com/MBOM. All right, now back to the episode. All right, so at the beginning of this episode, I told you a little bit about where I was, what I'm doing, and part of that was telling you that I'm drinking this delicious matcha latte, and the matcha that I'm using is from Magic Mind. And it's pretty cool because it's not your traditional matcha with the powder. It's actually a productivity drink that's made of all natural ingredients and has adaptogens, like I said before, that help to decrease stress. It has neurotropics that boost blood flow, and then, of course, matcha to help keep you focused. And I've mentioned this before, but I'm super sensitive to caffeine. And like I said before, I'm nursing my baby, so I have to be really cautious about how much caffeine I'm consuming. And I cannot just drink coffee all day to stay energized and productive. And as I'm adding work back into my life, I'm really needing something that can stimulate me and help me stay focused and really help me with that brain fog. And so that's one of the reasons I'm really excited about partnering with Magic Mind, because it's the perfect drink to help you feel good. And more often than not, I drink a coffee and then I get the jitters and I get kind of this energy buzz and then I crash really hard. And while I love coffee, it just does not make me feel good. And I love matcha, as you all know, if you've been listening for a while. Matcha has always been a really great, caffeine alternative for me. And I'm pretty stoked on Magic Mind because it's got even more ingredients and it tastes really good. So all I did was mix it with some unsweetened almond milk. I heated it up. I threw them together. I put it in the blender to froth it up. And now I'm sitting here drinking it. So if that sounds like something that you would love to have beside you for those moments where you're sitting at your computer or putting together class plans or doing some admin work, I definitely encourage you to check it out. It is www.magicmind.co/yoga. And then you can use code yoga20 for 20% off. And once again, that's magicmind.co/yoga, code yoga20 for 20% off. If you do decide to try it, let me know what you think of it, if you like the taste and how it makes you feel. All right, so getting back into this episode, I just want to take a quick moment to recap what we've talked about before. So I shared how, first recognizing when burnout is happening and recognizing it through exhaustion, tiredness, and also resentment showing up in your business. And one of the first things you can do is start by setting boundaries. So looking at what's working, what's not working for you, what's feeling good, what's not feeling good, and being really honest with yourself. And I find this super, super hard because I have a very logical brain that tells me, oh, well, this pays well, so I should continue doing it, even though it's not bringing me joy. And sometimes there is a need for that in terms of paying our bills. And, business isn't always rainbows and sunshine and butterflies and puppies and all these beautiful, wonderful things. Like sometimes we have to do things that we don't necessarily love because we need to pay our bills, and that's okay. But looking at, what's serving you, what's not, and something might be serving you because it allows you to pay your bills. So recognize that as well, but just do a little bit of a check-in for you in terms of what you're doing. And then look at where you could set some boundaries. So maybe it's saying no to certain class times or to certain clients, or if you're going to be away from your family, or if you're going to dig into your, time that you would rather be at home, doing something else for yourself, maybe you charge a little bit more and see if then it's worth it for you. So look at your boundaries, make sure you're getting some time off. I think one of the things I did early on that really caused burnout in my business after doing it for a while was just saying, oh, well, it's just, 1 hour of work on a Saturday. It's no big deal. The thing is that even if it's not physically draining, it becomes mentally draining, and we don't have that mental space to step away from our business. And that's what this is about. That time and space away from our business where we are resting and recuperating is magic. We need that. We scientifically need it. And it's really important for us to make sure we're doing that. And then, pulling from Renee's work that she does, setting up your schedule for making sure you have time in your day for a little bit of self-care, whatever that looks like for you. And then I'm going to take that a step further and saying, let's go further than just the self-care, and let's make sure there's time in every single day for rest, even if it's just 5 minutes. And this is rest outside of the time we're giving ourselves to sleep. And I think one thing that might be worth talking about here is making sure that we're sleeping enough, because for some of you, adding in rest to your day might actually be giving yourself 30 minutes more of sleep per night. So shutting things down and winding down a little bit earlier than you're used to so that you get that extra sleep, so that you're able to actually get those really rejuvenating hours. And maybe that means going to bed at 10:30 instead of 11, or 10 instead of 10:30. And that can make a huge, huge difference. And if you can give yourself even a little bit more time in that to do some wind down, to spend some time away from your screen, away from your phone, away from your kids, away from your partner, to just really allow your brain to drop into those slow brain waves, that's going to be so beautiful. And I shared, an example of being able to dabble with that a little bit myself and really experience having ideas come to fruition and feeling creative. And I find that sometimes when I'm on the hamster wheel, go, hustle, I'm still probably taking care of myself, and maybe even more so than the average person, because I have solid, morning and evening routines and solid yoga practice, solid meditation practice, solid journaling, all that type of stuff. I'm still not always giving myself that time and space to rest. And when I've been able to step away from, hey, I need to read a book to learn. Hey, I need to watch a documentary to learn. Hey, I need to have a stimulating conversation. Hey, I need to keep up with the news. Hey, I need to learn this thing on social media. That's when the magic has happened, is when I've given myself the opportunity for quiet moments. That's when I get these ideas that really come, I think, from an intuitive place. And that's how we're going to become more aligned with our businesses. And to me, more alignment equals more success. And if you've listened to me for a while, you know that for me, I use success with a little asterisk of you get to define what that looks like to you, because I don't think it's a one size fits all. So yeah, that's where I'm at with that. And I hope that that is helpful for you. And I hope that you come away from this feeling inspired to work hard in your business, but also give yourself that time and space away from your business to rejuvenate. And I know I talked a little bit about this in an episode, I think from early 2021, about giving myself 2 weeks of vacation around Christmas and New Year's. And I've been doing this since 2015, 2016. And it took me until the end of 2020, the beginning of 2021, to give myself 2 weeks off my business for the holidays. How crazy is that? I mean, maybe for you as a yoga teacher and a fellow yoga entrepreneur, maybe it's not, because maybe you understand that that can be hard, and that when we enjoy what we do, sometimes we don't want to step away, or maybe things are going really well and you just don't want to stop that momentum. But that was a beautiful reminder of how stepping away from my business allows me to come back feeling rejuvenated. And having just taken 3 months off to be with my baby and to heal from birth and postpartum and all of that type of stuff, I feel once again that I'm in a space of really evaluating what's working, what's not working, and what's really worth spending my time on. And I know, because I'm doing childcare, that it's a very, very slippery slope between getting caught up in hustle culture again and wanting to go, and wanting to do all the things. And that's going to ultimately lead me to burning out. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation, because for me, this is a reminder and a teaching for you, but it's also a reminder and a teaching for myself. Because it's so easy to slip back into these patterns and to try to do all the things and juggle all the things. And you know what? Sometimes it's okay that the laundry doesn't get done in that moment, or the dishes don't get done in that moment, because taking care of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually is some of our greatest work. This is the work that we do for ourselves, but it's also the work that we do for our partners, for our children, for our clients, for our students. One of the gifts we can give ourselves is rest, but one of the gifts we can give to the people around us is rest. Because when we're burnt out, when we're tired, when we're resentful, that's how we're showing up for everyone else in our lives. That's how we're showing up for ourselves, but it's also how we're showing up for other people. And so this is not just about you, but it's also about the people around you. It's about your business and all of that good stuff. So I hope that you feel inspired to add a little bit of rest into your life. And I know I talked about a couple ways that I rest, and I'm just going to reiterate that once again. And if you have any other ideas, I would love to hear what you're doing for rest. But some of the things that I find really restful are to just sit in the living room really quietly on the couch and read a fictional book, taking a bath, maybe reading there. I like to turn off the lights, maybe light a candle. I love to just move intuitively in a quiet, dark room. I love that. So whether that's first thing in the morning or in the evenings, I've been really loving like an evening routine since having a baby, since she really needs me first thing in the morning. We're just go with like changing, feeding, playtime, nap time. And then it's, the day's fully in swing. So having this little moment in the evening to myself has been great. Legs at the wall, breath work is beautiful, meditation. And I like to just do unguided meditations where I just allow myself to follow my breath and see where my mind takes me. And eventually I hit a state of quiet relaxation. Sometimes it takes a while, but I usually get there. Yoga Nidra is a really beautiful form of rest. And then going to bed a little bit earlier. is a really beautiful form of rest and such a gift that I love to give myself occasionally. So those are the things that I've been doing. One other one that I haven't really mentioned, and I know we just did a recent podcast episode on journaling with Katie Arnold, and that's really lovely, is giving yourself some time to journal. So maybe curling up on the couch with a blanket and a cup of tea and just allowing yourself to free flow with writing. This can be really cleansing, detoxing for ourselves, and also really restful and rejuvenating. Kind of depends. I feel like sometimes journaling can be very stimulating for me. So it just kind of depends what's going on. But I love a good journal session before I get into some of the other stuff I do, because often I find that my mind is so busy and just going in all directions and doing all the things from, the day or the week, that being able to journal is kind of like taking a shower. It's like cleansing myself and soaping myself and washing away the residue and the thoughts, so that when I do something like yoga nidra or meditation or breath work or movement, I'm not spending my whole time thinking about the things I saw online that day that frustrated me, or the things that somebody said that made me feel upset, or, whatever it is. So sometimes doing a little bit of journaling before you get into your rest state can really help you get deeper into that. So that's another suggestion. And like I said before, I would love to hear what you do for rest, or maybe if you have anything to add to the list. So feel free to send me a message on social media at Mastering the Business of Yoga, or send me an email, info@mbomyoga.com. I would love to hear from you. And if you are adding this into your life, I would love to hear how it's going for you, if it's helping you with your business, with the way you're feeling, if it's helping you manage your burnout and all that good stuff. So I really, really appreciate you being here. It's been so fun for me to just sit in this quiet space and talk behind the mic. This is something I've certainly missed over the last couple of months, and I'm really excited to be getting back into doing more podcast episodes. So we've got lots more fun content coming for you over the next couple of months. And if there's any topics or anything you'd like to hear about or have me cover, or things you want to learn about, please make sure you let me know. Same places as before. All right, friends, thanks so much for listening. Thank you to Offering Tree and to Magic Mind for being a part of this episode, for sponsoring the show, and for making this episode possible. Please go check them out. I don't recommend products and services that I don't use and love myself. So go check them out. And yeah, just a big thank you for being here, for listening, and for making it to the end of this episode. All right, we'll see you next week. Bye for now. Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of the podcast. To find links, notes, resources, and everything mentioned in today and all episodes of the show, you can head on over to mbomyoga.com. You can find the podcast and myself on Facebook and social media at Mastering the Business of Yoga. And I would love for you to join the private Facebook community, Yoga Business Badasses. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please make sure you reach out to me at info@mbomyoga.com. And last of all, if you enjoyed this episode of the show, please make sure you hit subscribe and leave a review for the podcast. It would mean the world. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Namaste.